Hello, I'm Carrie from Oregon.
And I'm Regina from Atlanta, and we are
The Wine Sisters of the Vine.
Wine Sisters of the Vine. How are you doing, my sister Carrie?
I'm doing really well, my sister Regina. Every time we have these conversations, I'm doing great. So,
Yes,
ready
it's
to,
good for the soul.
yeah, good for the soul for sure.
Yes,
And we have a special guest in the house today.
yes, we do.
Yeah,
Who do we have, Carrie, today?
we have Maria Ponzi from the Ponzi Vineyards in Washington County.
Where am I?
Hilltop up there, right. So welcome, Maria.
Thank you. It's great to be with you girls. Always a wonderful day when I get to hang out with awesome women and drink wine and talk wine and just enjoy. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thank
Pleasure.
you so much for
Sure.
joining us. And I know this is busy times with the reopening, safe reopening, and
Yes.
lots of things going on with your family. And just a little bit of background for the people, for our viewers about the Ponzi Winery here in Oregon. It's been around for over 4 decades. Was it 1974? Yeah, 1974 is that correct date?
So
Well,
5 decades. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, 1969, founded in 1970. So we crossed our half a century last year.
So you're in the 50 mark too.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So, and your sister your sister Louisa is the winemaker, and your parents, Dick and Nancy, lovely people, were very ambitious and planted those grapevines when you were small children, and everybody hoped for the best, and here we are.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, we were
Your
along
brother,
for the ride.
can't forget him. He was there too.
Yeah. All family, full family affair for sure. And yes, I was just recalling the other day that when we moved up here, all the kids were under the age of 7.
Oh my God,
And
wow.
so truly, yeah, this has been our lives since the very beginning. Like you, Carrie, actually. Carrie, as you guys probably already know, Carrie grew up on the other side of the hill from where I am, in a vineyard just like I was, but we never really met up probably because we were working all the time and we were never allowed to leave the vineyard. Am I right?
Our parents knew each other. Our parents were friends. They knew, same circle, but yeah.
Right, exactly.
But
it's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, we were the children in the vineyard. So, and
definitely.
That's a backstory right there. And speaking of, Maria has a book that she wrote about that, and you need to get.
I have got to hear about this.
Let's see it.
Go, girl.
Can I show it now?
Yes,
We'll just start out this segment with my book. We'll just start with that. So can I tell the story, Carrie?
Please do.
Can I tell the story about how this happened first?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So Carrie and I met up, I don't really want to disclose, but it may have been almost a decade ago, maybe a tinge more.
Right now,
right? And Carrie, like myself, we have this sort of love affair with the origin of the Oregon wine industry and how it became. And so we met up and we were discussing doing a book together. And it was really all about, researching these pioneers and interviewing the originals and really digging in deep into how they got started, why they got started, what it was all about, what they sacrificed, what they learned. And then Carrie's just a racehorse and I am not. And so she just went ahead and she's been doing so much stuff. I can't keep up. I've just been like trying to keep this winery thing alive. And finally, as I was saying earlier, my daughter, who is a journalism major, by the way, Carrie, said to me, one day, I'm like, I got to get that book done. And my daughter's like, you're never going to get, Mom, you're never going to get that done. You've been working on it for so long. And so she got me challenged. And so I finally just honed in the last 3 years, I guess, and finished it. And it's turned out to be a bit more of a memoir about me. It wasn't meant to be about me, but I've circled the stories of my life with all the stories of the original people who we were able to meet along the way. So it's a fun little journey. It's a very quick read. It's nothing fabulous. It's not even on the bestseller list, nothing. But it's a fun read, and it really gives you, I think, a sense of what it was like in those early days, in the very early 70s and the early 80s, when nobody knew about Oregon's Willamette Valley. It was not known as a wine region by any means, and it was just home of a lot of young families that were trying to make a go out of producing Pinot Noir. And despite the fact that many of us did not have a clue as to how to make wine or plant a vineyard or run a business or, God forbid, sell wine, we have pushed through and persevered. And as Carrie said, here we are today, 50 years later. And so it's a fun little, kickback. And it's fun too, because next month is Oregon Wine Month. And so if you really want to celebrate Oregon wine, you can grab one of these little things, and you'll be done in a weekend, and it will just kind of make you laugh and kind of remember the good old days of the 70s and the 80s, if nothing else.
Right. And our tube tops with boots. That was an interesting combo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. All the 70s gear that we wore in the, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that book would be fabulous in your store in Atlanta. Don't you think, Regina?
I think so. I think I need to have it in my shop.
Right.
We could do a wine tasting.
Well, thank you.
And have a book club meeting.
There you go.
Oh my gosh, how fun.
There you go.
We could do it virtually by postal.
It's an easy one to read with a glass of wine, so I strongly encourage the combo.
Well, I think, Regina, that this calls for a cheers for a change, a cheers to Maria for.
Well, thank you. Thanks, guys. Well, I appreciate it. Cheers.
Cheers.
Congratulations.
We're all drinking different wine. I love it.
That's right. Nice job. So the content, basically, of why we reconnected about a conversation to have with me and Regina was for some monumental news that's happening at the Ponzi Winery right now. So with that, would you like to take it away about what this big news is and how this transition is really, really big and really exciting and really kind of maybe a little scary, and you guys are blazing forward with courage.
Thanks, Carrie. Well, yeah, a couple weeks ago, we finally announced a deal that my sister and I have been working on with the Bollinger family out of Champagne, France, that we've been under discussions with them for over a year and a half, actually. So it's been kind of nice to have the secret out and about and be able to discuss it. But we are being acquired by the Bollinger family, and we'll be joining their portfolio of beautiful wines. It was something that kind of, it kind of happened, and before we knew it, it was really getting serious. We have noticed over the last several years, and particularly I think the last decade or so, just the renewed interest in the Willamette Valley. A lot of folks coming in and wanting to stake claim and get their name on the bottle and get their Willamette Valley piece of the action. A lot of new acquisitions by folks out of the country as well as just here within the U.S. And as savvy business owners, perhaps Louisa and I got together one day and said, we would be really silly to not at least see who's out there sniffing around. We, as we mentioned, Louisa and I have been doing nothing but wine since we were very, very young, and very focused for the last 30 years as our career while we've raised our kids and done everything else. And we're getting kind of tired, to be honest. And like many people who own their own businesses, there comes a time when you're like, wow, I'm getting kind of tired. I don't know if I'm as fresh as I used to be. And I think
come on.
And but we're both in our 50s, and we just wanted to see what was out there. So we started sniffing around, and come to find out that there was this wonderful family that had been looking in this area for quite some time too. And like I said, we started the conversation, and we realized that our values were very well aligned. The family works obviously just in France. This is their first acquisition outside of their home country in the U.S. And but they're focused on Pinot Noir and Chardonnay predominantly. They own a cognac house as well, but predominantly their real focus is on the varieties that we focus on here. They, much like us, are total real producers, authentic producers, and by that I mean they own their vineyards, they farm their vineyards, they're very focused on high quality, and their standards are high, much like ours. And they wanted to really acquire a legacy winery in the United States and hopefully in the Willamette Valley, and really just be a part of what's going on here in the US. So it was a kind of an interesting conversation, because we didn't hear a lot about making big changes or wanting to take over, move out the employees and buy new vineyards and grow the brand.
The
In fact, it was
name
quite,
is staying, right? So the
pardon me?
Ponzi brand name is going to stay.
Yeah, so
Let's
they
get that right
they
out.
want to keep Ponzi. Ponzi is the Ponzi house. The varieties that we produce will remain. The vineyards will remain. In fact, we as a family have retained over 100 acres still here in the North Willamette Valley that we have been farming for over many, many years, and selling the fruit right back to the winery. So the source of fruit will be the same. And then my sister has been asked to stay on, so she'll be the winemaker and the director of viticulture. She kind of can stay as long as she wants, basically. They said, you've got a job for life if you want it. Now, for me, I've been asked to exit, which is fine, because I'm ready to exit. But I'll be here for the next year, overseeing the operation until they kind of get settled and their feet are on the ground and they start to feel more comfortable. So I'm still here. I just don't have to have all those responsibilities of, I don't know, just doing all the other stuff that you have to do when you're a business owner that sometimes isn't that fun. My preference is, you know, I've always loved the marketing of the business, and I love brand building and selling wine and being with people. That gets me excited and I love it. But I don't like spreadsheets. I don't like sitting in front of, you know, a computer all day long. Anyway, we could go on. There's a lot of stuff I don't like. So I don't have to do all that anymore. But I think additionally, beyond it just being an exciting time for Ponzi and our family, it's an exciting time, I think, also for the region. And for us, as Carrie knows too, we have always thought about the region or even the state. It has rarely been just about us. And I think that the comments that we've received over the last couple of weeks has really validated that, in that we thought this is actually a good thing for the Valley. This is a great house with high quality standards, with a focus, you know, in their home of sparkling wines, which is something that we have seen an increase of interest here in the Valley. So who knows what will happen with that. But I think just for them to come in and be the first house out of Champagne is a kind of another validation of what our folks had seen so many years ago as this being such a very special place in the world for these very noble grape varietals. So we're excited about it. We hope the region's excited about it. And I think as the wine community becomes a little more acquainted with the family, I think that they'll be very warmly embraced here, I hope so.
That's fabulous. Regina, your experience in the French wine industry, and you're a French wine scholar. Regina's a French wine scholar. So
great.
I love it. I think it's fantastic in the fact that they're focusing on Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, obviously Burgundian varietals. That is amazing.
Yeah, and they own, thank you. And they own also the Domaine Chanson in Burgundy as well. And they're, you know, well known for their beautiful Chardonnays. Chardonnay is something Louisa and I've been really trying to push a little bit more out of our region. And so we're hoping we can continue to do so. Mm-hmm. So we're really excited about it. And I think it's a win for everybody. I mean, the only potential lose is that I really don't know what I'm going to do, but I'll figure something out.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, that is like a clean slate. That is nothing better than that.
I hope so. I hope so. I don't know what my husband is thinking right now, other than get her out of the house.
We'll certainly
see how we go.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's an accomplishment though, Maria. I mean,
congratulations on that. That's fantastic.
Thank you. Well, I really appreciate the accolade. And, you know, it was something that was bittersweet. You know, our family's very close. We're definitely rooted here and have been. And like I said, we've always been about wine. That's just it's in our blood. And so this was, a big decision for the family, and one that we didn't take lightly. As I said, the conversations were very thoughtful and very lengthy. We also brought Dick and Nancy, the founders and our folks, into the conversations. They're no longer owners of the winery, but we wanted their perspective. And of course, we wanted their nod of approval, that they would agree that this was a good decision for the winery, and they did. And, we have children that are in their young 20s. And, we brought it to them as well and wanted to hear their feedback and get their perspective. And they were just so lovely about it. I have to kind of brag a little bit on these kids that kids are in their 20s, but, about, hey, this is what you've done, and this is what our grandparents wanted to do, but, we do have other interests. And the reality is they do. They're all very passionate. They have a bit of the entrepreneurial spirit, I think, of the family within them, almost all of them. And so it's kind of a little bit liberating too, as a mother, to say, we're going to clip this umbilical cord. Are you okay? And then saying, please do it. We don't want that obligation. And we don't want to offend you or offend our grandparents by saying we really don't have that love for it. And so it really has been a lovely, transition so far. We'll see. We're all being very optimistic at this point. But, as you guys, I know, have, I don't know, Regina, if you have children, but as a mother, you're always considering, how are your decisions affecting your kid?
Absolutely.
It's certainly something that Louisa and I really spoke about over the last several months. So.
Well, and I'm sure, let's talk about those last several months, because just like Regina and I were taping our show, we started taping it in June of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And Regina and I started having a slogan after a while. Still, she persisted despite the wildfires, despite, just these things, the riots that were happening in Atlanta and Portland, and these commonalities that we found between her experience in Atlanta and mine on the West Coast, which were many and not all positive at the time. But the commonalities we celebrated, of course, were our life experiences that were very similar, despite being from different coasts.
Mm-hmm.
But what I think is really fascinating is the process that you mentioned to me earlier about this last year you spent on Zoom talking to people in France.
Yeah.
And
yes,
that was a process.
It was a process.
They
call it a viso.
Yeah.
Carrie, they say, we need to have another viso. And I'd be like, oh, another one? We have to have another viso. And, we're dealing in European time zones. So now it's like, oh my God, it's 6 a.m. It's 7 a.m. and we're with the French again, Right. Louise and I never put that right into the equation of like, oh my God, we're dealing with the French now. That means we get up early. And,
it's so funny that you mentioned that. We did an episode with a person that I know who lives in Paris, and so it was, what time was it?
Like in the morning for us, or
it was. And then Carrie is on the West Coast, and I'm on the East Coast, so I think it was, I don't know, like 2 o'clock in the morning or something. It was some ungodly hour, but we made it happen.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? I mean, but that's the thing, right?
As women, we do that. We do what we got to do.
Well, you reflect on last year, and we were able to connect, like you guys, we were able to connect with people from all over the world, and do these seminars and tastings and whatever. And it was like, that was kind of a positive, I guess, out of the last year, is that we were able to, I was doing a virtual tasting in Denmark. It was so funny. Like, to your point, I don't know what hour it was, but I'm watching these people having dinner, sipping Ponzi wine. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I would rather be there in Denmark with them, no doubt. But it's still neat that I'm in their dinner table, in all their little homes. And so, that was fun to have a different experience, I guess.
Yeah, I think that did bring all of us in a bigger, I know that Regina and I filming that all over the world was an experience that would not have happened if the whole pandemic wouldn't, right, Regina?
Well, I don't think anybody would have been settled enough to be able to do what we did, right? So I don't think, I don't think she would have been available probably because it was like 6 o'clock in the evening there, and it was something that I think, you know, it was a pause that allowed us to connect in a way that we hadn't before.
Yeah, yeah.
In a positive way.
In a positive way, absolutely.
Make something positive out of the negative. That was, I think, the one positive. And Zoom certainly benefited from it too.
Yes, yes.
Oh my God, Zoom. I think they had to catch their breath because everybody was like doing Zoom.
That's right.
Zoom and Amazon did really well last year.
Yeah.
So let's have a little wine conversation here about a bottle of wine that has a Laurelwood AVA on it.
Yeah, so exciting. So this is our new release. It'll be out next month in May in celebration again of Oregon Wine Month. And this is our 2017 Pinot Noir. It's Laurelwood District AVA. And this is a brand new AVA, Laurelwood District. And so Ponzi Vineyards, the winery is located up in the northern part of the Willamette Valley. And if you know the Willamette Valley, or if you look at a map, you'll see the Willamette Valley is quite large. And up in the northern part, that's typically known as the Chehalem Mountains AVA. And it's quite a large AVA. In fact, it's one of the largest in the valley, in the state. And we've always been in Chehalem Mountains, and that's fine. But we knew in the back of our mind that at some point we were going to have to nestle into this AVA because it was too broad. And it wasn't really speaking to soil as much as it was speaking to just geography. And so because our family has been farming in this area for 50 years, we've been farming in this same soil. The only thing that's really changed is elevation. So we kind of moved around in this area, but we realized we're always in this same soil type, and it's called Laurelwood soil. And there's just a swath of it, a concentrated swath of it on the north. It's basalt-based, and then it has a wind-blown topsoil and a lowest soil that sits kind of on top of it, with little pistils or little kind of pebbles on the top of that. And you find that this Laurelwood soil only in this particular area of the Willamette Valley. And, we kind of knew it, but we didn't really act on it until we started really seeing the differences in our wines and the flavor profile of our wines versus, the wines of Eola Hills or even Dundee Hills or Yamhill Carlton. We're starting to see these differences in flavor profiles within this larger, Willamette Valley, or even within the Chehalem Mountains AVA. So we dug in and we started the process of establishing a new AVA. And again, this has been many years of working. In fact,
probably a decade, don't you think?
Over a decade. There's another family, interestingly, who was a grower, and he started the owner of this vineyard that we've been purchasing fruit from, Dion. You may know the Johnson family. Yeah. They started kind of digging into, so to speak, the situation on the soil. He started the process, and then he kind of let it go, and it sat there. And then
that too, I think he's second.
What's that?
He's second generation too. They are.
Yes. Well, actually, it was his father. The first generation was the guy who started the research. Yeah. And anyway, we picked it up again a few years ago, probably 5-6 years ago, and started really researching it. And of course, because this is the first AVA that is soil-based, based on geology, the TTB didn't know what to do with it. And it kind of like takes me back to those pioneering days, those days of like, oh, wait, we got to teach these people this stuff because they don't know. And so it took us like, they don't know anything. And so it took us like I think we entered 3 or 4 times, and we had to continue to bulk up on, research and data, and oh my God, it went on and on and on. And we kept trying to tell them, look, you guys, this is not your standard American viticultural area. We need you to think a little bit. We need you to get in here. We're talking about the soil, not just, boundary lines. They finally got it, but it was one of those persist. We finally got it in. And that's another good thing that happened last year. It was actually announced last April that there would be this new AVA. So the wines are just now coming out. I get often the question, well, what other wineries are in that AVA, the Laurelwood District? And to be frank, there are very few wineries. There are several vineyard growers. So we have a lot of viticulture here. But if you know the winery of Raptor Ridge is a neighbor of ours. Aloro, these are very small producers.
I have a Aloro in my shop.
Oh, yay. Well, they're right over the street. I mean, they're right over the bend, and their wines are beautiful, and they're all Laurelwood districts. So, but they're what we've seen is the producers are quite small if they do make wine, you know, they're like Aloro. But we seem to be the largest winery that's using this soil type. But anyway, fun wines. And in terms of components, you know, flavor components, the wines tend to be a little more kind of blue fruited and black fruited, like a blueberry, blackberry kind of profile, as opposed to that kind of bright cherry kind of idea. Lots of structure in the Pinot Noirs, actually Chardonnay too, but they're really pretty wines, and we've seen a lot of consistency in the styles. So therefore the AVA, we had to do it. So there you go. So we did it.
Awesome. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully we'll see more wines coming out with this designation. But we're excited about it. I mean, you know, it's like Carrie knows, we've been here so long, you know, we're always trying to make it better. You know what I mean? Like, how do we improve on something that's already amazing and just do things right and better define the region? And I don't know, I love that about the wine community here in the Willamette Valley, is that there seems to still be that spirit. When you say, Carrie, of just kind of making it better and elevating things.
Yes.
In our viticulture.
Yes, in our episode next, the one that we're filming next week, Regina and I are going to be talking to Paige Knutson. Doesn't that remind you of conversations we've been having with Paige Knutson, Regina?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Here she is with this family winery, you know, another person like you and I who's been in the industry for 50 years, but she has a new label on the 50-year-old vineyard that her parents started in the early 70s. So it's current modern, you know, version of how can we perfect this thing that our parents set in action, and to honor the legacy, and to also, you know, honor your life, your career of working to hold the torch for the second generation. I mean, it's a double win. It's a win all around. And the exciting thing that I think, and I think from just talking to Regina too, what has been illuminating for me is to see how Oregon is reflected on the larger map. And Regina being on the East Coast, and then Regina and I together talking to people, as she was mentioning, Tanisha Townsend, who writes about wine in Paris, and how far our region, really in the United States as a whole, has emanated all the way, not only to France and beyond, but look at this, somebody from France paid enough attention to come all the way over here to the West Coast and buy a winery. That's miraculous. And Regina in Atlanta has a Loro in her store.
Yeah, that's great.
Think about when you and I were even in high school and grade school. I mean, we're planting those vines and thinking, oh, this, you know, who's even going to pay attention to us? And
it was embarrassing, right? We were like, don't ask me what my dad does. He makes wine. Oh my God, I'm a drunk. You know. Oh,
right. Yeah.
Terrible.
Basement. Right.
And like, it's so fun now, right? The kids, my kids, right? I'm sure your kids too, are like, oh, my parents have a winery, or their friends have vineyards. That's what I love. Oh, well, my friend has a vineyard and winery. You're like, oh yeah, everyone has one.
Yeah. Wine in the basement, whatever.
Yeah. We somehow, it wasn't like that when we were around, right? It was like,
no.
Yeah. You get teased every day at school because your mom and dad were drunks.
Oh, that is funny.
What's a vineyard? Me and Kathy and Paige Fouquet. What's a vineyard?
What's a vineyard?
I love the guests, and I'm not being rude, but you know, they come here and then they look at the winery and they go, so is that the restaurant? And you're like, well, not so much, but kind of.
Wow.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, Regina, you're right. It's just a wow. You're just like, yeah, wow.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
That's the restaurant. And you know, I don't know. Anyway, it's interesting. We take a lot for granted when we grew up in this industry. And so I
And
always have to remind myself that not everybody knows all this stuff. Not everybody knows that it's vineyard, and what is the difference between a vineyard and a winery, you know? I had a question, this was ages ago, and somebody said, so I know there's this thing about dry wine, but does that make the other wine wet?
oh, wow. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, no, it doesn't, but that's clever.
It is clever. It is clever. It is clever.
I hadn't heard that one.
Right. Well, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was the first year, well, Rollin Soul started Argyle, and he decided, because he came and made his first vintage in our basement before Argyle even existed. And he was also making wine for Rothschild too, of all places. And so there was a lot of fruit flies on everywhere on the second during fermentation, because he brought in a lot of wine in the basement. And anyway, people would come in when he actually did go down, and we opened up the tasting room at Argyle, and they would say, well, do you have any of that Pinot Noir?
Newer, yeah.
Seriously.
Newer.
Yeah. And yeah. So you think about those things, and you think about, here we are sitting in 2021, and you know, the people would even pay attention to us from France.
You know, Carrie, I remember as a kid, I didn't want to say the word Pinot Noir.
It was too close to the other P word.
It was very close. I didn't want to go there. And no, people thought we were crazy anyway. And then it's like, well, what, you know, what's that grape? What's that wine?
Right.
Pinot.
Yeah.
Chardonnay. We're making Chardonnay.
And where's your Filbert orchard?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, and yeah. And the glamour is your parents on the tractor at night after they come home from work, because I know your parents did that too. And my dad would come home from the granary, and he'd get on the tractor, and he'd drive the tractor. It didn't have a headlight, so he could only drive it until dusk. And Jim Mark.
We only had one headlight either. It must have been a thing, because it's the same thing at our place.
And
so
yeah.
It was a cheap tractor. That was what we had in common. We both got it at the junkyard, and they were too cheap to put in a second headlight. That was the deal.
You guys had the first press that you were amazing to honor my dad with at the front of the winery there, that wine press.
Oh yeah, the little hand press, yeah.
Shared everything.
I know. Lots of stories. I mean, you know, lots of stories, which is why it's fun to kind of write about it, because you kind of remember all those things start to come out, and you just kind of shake your head and go, we have come a long way for sure. Mm-hmm. You know, golly, you know, our tasting room, right, you know, was in our little garage, and it was two barrels, unused barrels with a hollow core door that we had found from, you know, the shack back there. Threw it on the top of the barrels and threw a table linen on top, put some flowers on the top of that baby. And that was our wine bar for, I don't know how long. And what do you know, people came down the road and they started tasting wines, and now we have these beautiful, you know, tasting rooms with sit down experiences. I mean, God, we have a chef. You know, we have a chef. I mean, a beautiful.
I almost wish you had the hollow core door and the two barrels.
That's a great story. Coming from your two barrels to now you have these beautiful tasting rooms and a chef.
Crazy.
Can you talk about the kind of how did you go from the two tables to the chef and the private, you know, the whole thing?
Oh, well, you're tired. That's how you do that. Well, you know, I love the tasting room story, and I think that something about my story is I was always following my mom around, right? So my dad was, you know, he was a teacher. He was, like Carrie said, he had a job, you know, off property. And then he would come and make the wine and whatever. But my mother was the one that I kind of tuteled after, because she was always there, right? She was a mom. She was at home in those days that your mom was typically at home. And so I was really interested in what she was doing, which ended up being writing press releases, you know, or announcing a new wine was coming out, or eventually going to a store and trying to sell wine. But, you know, on the side, we were trying to get things to sell at home. So therefore the tasting room concept, you know, was really born.
Right.
Yeah. What'd you say?
I agree with you. Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
And so I think that was kind of part of this, is that I was always in the tasting room with Mom.
Right.
And I also learned how important the tasting room was, because that's where the education was happening. I mean, it's like your wine shop. That's where the education is happening. And people were coming in that were interested. And so it was like, this is great. So it was all about spreading the word and trying to get people to understand what we were doing and this and that. So when we finally, we converted from the garage, and then we, renovated our little family house to the tasting room eventually, and you kind of like start to build and grow a little bit. And then when we moved up to the new property, which was in 2006 is when we bought it, and then we built the winery in 2008, and then it was 5 years later that we finally had, saved enough dollar to build the tasting room. And incidentally, my husband is an architect builder, and so he and I worked together on the design of the tasting room. And this is now 2013, and I'm kind of thinking we need to do something beyond just the bar, because now this is a well-established region. People are flocking here because they've heard about our wines in Atlanta or New York or wherever they've been. And so we need to step up our game a little bit, is what I thought. And so we built this really beautiful tasting room, and I thought, what we should do, and I think the Valley's ready for, is create a sit-down experience. So it's not just a walk-in, taste and go, which my mom always loved because it was good cash flow. But I'm the dumb one. But I wanted people to come in. And sit and get the story, right? Understand why we're here. Talk about the beautiful slopes and the agriculture and the farming all the focus that we put into farming, and then talk about the wines and spend time really talking about the wines. And so that created this sit-down kind of a concept. And then what do you know? People sit down and then they want to eat, because we're Americans, right? It's time to eat. You sit down with wine, it's time to eat. And so now we have this beautiful situation here, and this is many years, whatever, it's been 7, 8 years now. Later, and we developed a kitchen so that we could do food and wine pairings. And so now I'm so excited right now. What's happening in the tasting room is that someone can come in and taste 3 wines. In fact, we're doing Laurelwood right now. So there's Chardonnay, Pinot, Pinot Reserve, all Laurelwood District. And our chef has prepared a little dish, with one little dish for each wine, to sort of understand that and go back and forth and kind of experience the flavors and how it works with this wine versus that one. So again, it's just like elevating this experience one step more and taking it one step farther. And I think like that is what I've always been excited about, that, because for me, again, following my mom around has always been about education and promoting this beverage in a positive light, and so, yeah, it's been a thrill now to see so many wineries kind of moving into this kind of fashion, and people really enjoying it. And I think, if I can get one more step, post-COVID, or as we are right now, not that we're post-COVID, but we're moving out of this pandemic, I hope, what I'm seeing is I'm seeing more people moving out into wine country for experiences than going into the city and going to the restaurant, because the restaurant situation is still trying to figure itself out. And yet they can still, at least in Portland, you can go 45 minutes, an hour outside of the city, and you have this beautiful landscape, and you can have this culinary experience and kind of breathe a little bit. And I think that's going to be really interesting for the future of wine countries all over the country, frankly, if they start to develop them in this way. But anyway, there's my rant on culinary experiences. But I think it's great. And one step farther is I love it because I, like Carrie, coming from a wine family, we always had wine on the table. It wasn't a beverage that we consumed and abused or misused. We always thought of it in a respectful way, and we always thought of it as part of the dinner or whatever it was, the lunch or whatever we were having. And I think it really starts to get people to think in more respectful ways about this particular beverage, about wine, and what a delight it can be, and so much it can add such pleasure to that experience. So I'm a real advocate for that piece of it too.
I think
Well, I
that's
think
great.
Regina, it speaks to that wine and food philosophy that we were, and much of that wine unfiltered, might I add, in the early years. Remember this, the unfiltered wines, and that was
Mhm.
just part of it. But I think that wine and food relationship where you are now in this situation where you're doing these wine and food pairings in 2021 and making that relationship, and then Regina is doing a similar thing in Atlanta,
Cool.
speaks to where we are in the wine world, because Regina is doing these food and wine tastings like into the night. They're so busy doing these because people really love that experience, right, Regina? Like we should.
Yeah, I totally agree with Maria. People want an experience. And so, in my shop, we do these elaborate charcuterie boards. I don't have a chef and I don't have a commercial kitchen, so we don't do food
Yeah.
preparation, but we do charcuterie boards. So, but even in that, in my retail shop, people just love the experience of being able to taste 3 or 4 wines and having something to pair with it. I think, and it doesn't even have to be anything, over the top. It's just the
Yeah.
experience of having, the food and the wine and being able to have that conversation, whatever the conversation is. I think people love that. And I think I cannot wait to come and visit you.
Yeah. Well, I'll
Yeah.
still be here. So come
Yeah.
this year.
Yes. And
Before they kick me off
yeah,
my property, come and visit.
yeah, I can't, I'm trying to get there this summer for sure.
Yeah, you got
Awesome. That'd be
Yeah.
great. Well, we'd love to have you.
Yeah. So, Maria, a large part of our conversation is about diversity and female empowerment and entrepreneurship. Obviously, you come into all of that. Can you tell us about the culture for girls growing up in your family, and how did that contribute to your career as a business owner?
Well, I think I was really fortunate that I grew up with a very visionary mother, a very progressive woman, who did not allow me to be a cheerleader when I was in high school, which is why I act like this now. No, I'm kidding. But I was never allowed to be on the dance team.
Mm-hmm.
I was allowed, however, to be in student government. I was not allowed to take a typing class, but I could take, the machine class.
Mm-hmm.
So the woodworking classes. So she was subtly very much directing me into a position of leadership. In fact, she told me that at some point, she said, I don't want you working for some man.
Mm-hmm.
And, because she was coming, right? She was
Nancy Ponzi right now. And my mother, Donna Jean, did the same thing to me.
Well,
Here's to our moms.
And my mom did the same thing to me.
Here we go.
Really?
Here's to
Yeah.
our moms.
I mean, here's to moms,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Here's to really kick-ass moms that
Moms of girls, strong girls.
strong women. And I think that I didn't even know what was going on. Honestly, I think that, I tried to try out for cheerleading, and she came and picked me off the gym floor and threw me in the truck and said, this is not going to happen. So, so I think I was sort of, bred into that. I think definitely Louisa, my sister, was the same. I think along with being a farming family, we were tied to the farm. We were tied to the land. We lived off the land for many years as a young person. So we were used to working hard. You know what I mean? I mean, that the work ethic happened just incidentally because of being in the country, I think, and not having options, frankly. So that all helped. And I think that it was really my mother, because I don't want to offend my father because I love him to death, but he's from the Italian family, very traditional Italian.
He quietly supported in a different way. He supported in a different way.
Yeah, and he supported us, but I don't even know if he knew what his wife was doing with his daughters, in the shift. And I think that I just kind of followed her lead. And when when I could jump off and do my own thing, I was very independent. And I think that it all starts with your mom. It all starts with your upbringing, or not your mom, but whoever's bringing you up, right? It could be your grandmother or whoever it is that your role model. you're modeling from. And I think that's so important for young girls in particular, because we all know how bright young women are. And, it's just about getting them in the right, giving them the right support and seeing what they can do. I have said, one thing that we're really proud of at this winery is that, Luis and I were able to take full ownership. And after we did, we really started bringing more women into the winery. So we started, trying to really research women who wanted to intern under Harvest and work with Louisa. And so now I think it's like 80% of the hires that we make as current are women. And, we're not afraid that we seek women out, and we make we're really strong about that. And we've seen some amazing gals come through here. We've seen some women who can't make it. It's just too much physical labor or whatever it might be. But it's been really rewarding to see women come through the winery, but then of course on my end of things too, and being able to mentor young people and young women here. But I think it all starts with just, really bringing that support to young women, young girls at a young age. And I don't know about you guys. I have a daughter, and I think that was my one goal, right, was to make sure that I nurtured a strong woman, and I have, and I'm so proud of that, because I think it's just really important that women know that they can do whatever it is that they want to do, and to be independent and self-sufficient and not be dependent on anybody. And I think that's something that my mom subtly kind of got us in that track. So, yeah.
I know Regina and I have talked, and it's a continuing theme with us as well, to Maria, our mothers. I mean, I know Regina will tell you about the significance of her mother in her life, right, Regina?
Yeah, my mom is deceased, but, I totally live, I'm just a twin of hers. And she just taught me, and she was a very independent woman and so at a very young age, I realized that I could do whatever I wanted to do.
That's great.
Despite any obstacle. And so I'm so appreciative of my mom.
Seriously.
For that, because I didn't see a limit to where I could go.
Yeah.
Regardless of what, was female, African American. I never, it was not in my realm of thinking that there was something I couldn't do. You know what I mean?
I totally love that, because I think sometimes strong women like yourself, you don't even really know that you're that strong, right? Because it's like, dude, you just been doing it. You're just like on your path, and you're just doing. Somebody goes, God, you're just amazing, or whatever, and you're like, really? Am I? I don't know. I didn't know this. You just keep doing your thing, and I think that is. I think that's so cool. I was on a talk a few weeks back with some women leaders, and they were from cybersecurity. So these are smart chicks. Mm-hmm. And the one thing this woman said, and I'll never forget now, she said, you need to always remember that you want to remain uncomfortable, because when you're uncomfortable, that's what charges you, right? Yeah. That's what gets you going to the next level. Yeah. And I really started thinking about that too in my career. And there's, like you guys, there were definite moments when I was really challenged, right? Like, you're just like, you're really pushing me right now, and usually it was a man who would be completely condescending or whatever it was, your typical situation. And that would really get me going. And I think the uncomfort piece, and that's minor compared to a lot of what a lot of women have to do to deal with discomfort, but it really kind of gets you. If you're a strong person, you just kind of go, all right, you got me, let's just see what I'm going to do now. And I think that there's something to that with strong women. And I think that that's the difference between being a woman who feels capable and competent and one that doesn't. And that's the difference. You know what I mean? Like, you don't mind kind of getting a little push, because you're like, I'm going to do it now.
Right.
I'm going to get you.
With that, the strongness doesn't mean that you don't get vulnerable, you have weak moments. It's not that. It's about how you get up, because you're going to undoubtedly fall. It's about how you get up and the fact that you do get up.
Hey, and you guys, didn't we see that with last year?
Yes.
I mean, last year was one of those big, long, never-ending challenges of like, hello, you got to keep going, girl. You know, I was just like, I can't, I'm already burned out. You know, I'm like, I'm already trying to get out of this thing and you're throwing this on me. Wow. Okay. You know, but you just, you know, you sort of like have those moments of like, okay, get up and you're going to do it. And I think that says something about one's character, which obviously comes from your upbringing.
You know what our motto has been in the last, our motto, I think this is just going to be our motto forever. Still, she persisted. Regina and I would call each other, we'd be exhausted. She would have worked all day at the store and we had to tape an episode and we'd be like, okay, we're doing this, you know, and she could really stay awake. And still she persisted. You guys were doing that up there, you know, you persisted.
Well, I mean, everybody was. And I think that, and a lot of people have had great challenges and still continue to have great challenges, obviously. And I think that, you know, it was such an endurance you had to have for last year. And I feel like, I feel like those of us who are still here and standing, we made it through a war, my friends. You know, that was a battle. And damn, if we didn't all get through. And those of us who did get through, I mean, I lost my dearest friend. My best friend passed away last year. And so it was horrible, you know, but for the most part, we kind of all got through. And so, but it was a test of the character, no doubt.
Yeah. And our urban and another, you know, commonality, Regina and I have very wonderful commonalities, but one of the really negative commonalities, what was happening in the urban area in Atlanta with the protests and all of the unrest, and same thing in Portland. And so we had to all find a way to rise above that and say, you know, we can all do better than this. And, you know, we have to find a way that we can kind of heal some of this or try to move forward out of this, because this is really awful. And
I learned so much last year. I got to tell you, I'm one of those white privileged chicks. And I got to say, I started reading stuff and my kids started talking to me. I started really digging into these issues. And I mean, it's terrible, but for a person like me, I learned a lot. And I think for me, I'm coming out a little bit better because I didn't know what was going on. I'm one of those. I just didn't know how horrible things were.
You make fun of us for being the woke people then, but I mean.
What's that?
Well, I mean, you know, we are, I mean, that's right. I'm exactly the same way you are. I feel like I'm one of those awoke, I'm an awakened person to think that we live in a privileged white world. And it's true. Regina's opening her eyes. Like, she's cracking up. But I mean,
Well, I mean, here's my deal though. Sure. We all grow up in a certain environment, right? And we are over here in Oregon. It was we were terrible people ages ago. And we're in the rural area. You know, I mean, the first time I saw a Black person, I think I was in Boston. I mean, I had to get out of the state. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know what a Jewish person, I didn't know what a Jewish person was until I got out of the state of Oregon. I mean, that's how sad our situation is over here, you know? And so, I hope, again, it's a horrible situation, but I feel that I learned a lot. And for that, I'm making it a little positive for me, because I feel like now I can become a little bit more, I guess it's awoken, right? That's what you say, but it's just a little more aware of where everyone's coming from and have a little more empathy for people, you know? Geez, you just don't know what's going on. And I don't know, my daughter is attacking me like, wow, Mom, you should know. And I'm like, I know I should, but I don't live in Atlanta. And I just, you know, and I haven't been in these big cities and where you have diversity.
But I think the thing about Regina and I starting this is we wanted to really emphasize the commonalities about our experiences of you being a strong woman. And, you know, we just had this great, you know, 10-minute dialogue about having strong mothers. And we just did that. We just emphasized our commonalities. And that's why we're doing this show, Wine Sisters Change. Yeah. To emphasize those things. Doesn't matter where we grew up. We all really had similar experiences with a mother. Doesn't matter our background or anything. You know, we all had mothers with very similar personalities. I know your mother, you know, she is like my mother, and she has very clear visions about her child. And Regina has talked to me extensively about her mother, same way. She had a clear vision about Regina. And, you know, that transcends race and everything. That is just purely a commonality about a mother really loving her child and wanting the best for her as a girl. So
well, one thing that I'm hoping to do when I do have some free time is I'm hoping to work more. I've been active with foster care children, and I've also been involved with some incarceration and some young people that have been incarcerated. And I really would like to do a little bit more work with those two very different areas.
Yeah.
Because to our point, it's all about how you're brought up, and it's who your support is, and it's who you're modeling. Those are so critical to who you're going to end up as an adult.
Yeah.
And I just think there's so much more we should be doing. Oh my God, don't get me started on these topics, but there's just, you know, there's a lot of things that we could be doing that aren't being done. And so I'm hoping that that's one reason that I was kind of happy for this acquisition, because you know, I feel like I still have a little bit of life still, and I want to do something really good and leave feeling like I did something good besides drink wine.
Well, you've done amazing.
Besides making
work.
it and drinking it, I should say.
Absolutely.
Maria, you have done amazing things, and this has been delightful to chat with you. And Regina, I mean, I'm so excited about showcasing women's stories like this, and Maria, and I mean, it's another episode that's just magic.
We could just talk all night.
I know. I feel like, gosh, yeah. And so it's really been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. It's been so fun, you guys. And
so how do I get the Pinot Girl in Cuvée?
Carrie, will you shoot me her address, and I'll just
and hold it up for the screen. So show everybody again, Maria. Hold the book up.
Oh, okay. It's called Pinot Girl.
Everybody take a good look, and it's by
Pinot Girl. You can go online. You can buy it on Amazon, but don't. Buy it online at ponzivineyards.com. Support your local business or your local bookstore, your favorite little bookstore. Don't support Amazon anymore. You guys, they're fine. Stop.
Right. Support. Yes.
Those guys are fine.
That's right. All right. Well,
thanks you guys so much. It was such a pleasure to meet you, Regina. I hope to see you this summer. Make sure you email me. It might be a Gmail in a couple of weeks, but I'll make sure.
It's okay.
We'll see how it goes. All right.
Well, this has been another wonderfully entertaining episode of the Wine Sisters Cheers for Change with Anna Maria Ponzi and Regina, my wine sister, and Maria. Cheers to you. Love you.
Cheers, you guys.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Okay.
All right.
All right.